Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR and Sirius XM Channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. This is another Take Back Our Community Thursday, and tonight we are discussing again deadly youth violence in our community. My guests are Dr. Bishop Yawasab from Israel United in Christ Church and Dr. Waris Majid, founder of Yay Me, a community activist group. Gentlemen, thank you so much for talking to us today. I appreciate it.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Dr. Majid, I want to ask you first. I'm sure you've heard of what happened in the District of Columbia overnight, 3 people killed as a result of gun violence. You're also aware of the issue that is happening at the National Harbor in Prince George's County, a new curfew implemented just today for this coming weekend, keeping young people out of the National Harbor area. There's still legislation that is moving through the Prince George's County Council to provide another kind of juvenile curfew for business districts around the county. Your reaction to all of the things that are kind of happening right now in our area?
So, first of all, I want to say that, we find ways to handle problems that have been going on for a long time. The youth, I'm just going to start with the National Harbor. Having a team that works the National Harbor, that engages with these individuals, specifically on Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, we get to talk to these young people. And one of the reasons why they even at the harbor is because it allows the parents believe that that's the safest place for them to be. However, when you have 10 young people at the National Harbor, that's manageable. When you have 100, 200, 300, like we had last weekend, then it becomes a situation where they don't understand what to do. They don't know what to do. So what we have to do is collectively, our community, we need to come together and realize that these individuals are actually looking for some outlets. Now, if we don't provide positive outlets for young people, they are going to create outlets regardless. And when they come together and you have 14, 15, 16, and 17-year-olds, unfortunately, without the right guidance, the right parental guidance, the right guidance from elected officials and even individuals like ourselves, then it becomes chaos. But when we do talk to these young people, which we have the opportunity and we're blessed to do, they are some amazing young people and they are looking for something to do, something positive to do. They don't have anything positive to do. They're just going to do whatever they can, right? Because at the end of the day, the guys are chasing the girls are chasing the guys. They're just looking for having to have fun. And I think a lot of times individuals in our position, we forget about what 14 looked like. We forget about what 16 looked like, right? And so we have to start to provide them with an opportunity to express themselves, to enjoy life, to enjoy being a child. And when that does not happen, then guess what? They're going to find a way to do what they have to do. And unfortunately, it comes across to us as the adults as they are being reckless or doing something that we do not approve of. But that's actually not it. They're children trying to be children in a world that is not giving them guidance.
I do want to drill down a little bit more on that during the course of this conversation. But Bishop, one of the reasons that we are talking to you and your organization, because your organization is based out of New York, you're in North Carolina, but you have active chapters not only nationally but internationally. But there's an event, and this event is happening in Prince George's County this weekend in District Heights, Maryland. It's a Stop the Violence youth event. Can you kind of drill down on why your organization, a national organization, is focusing on something that is happening here and what's going to happen this weekend with the event?
Well, yes, absolutely. First of all, I want to give all praise and honor to our Father, the Most High God, and His Son, Jesus Christ, for allowing us to have the opportunity to come on this program, to be able to expand the gospel, to resurrect our people from the spiritual decadence that are plaguing us worldwide. As you mentioned, you mentioned about our organization. as I pointed out, our organization is not only national, but it's international and it's around the world. But the reason why I point that out is because as you make reference to the violence and the events that's happening in the DC area, one might ask, how could your particular mission curtail the violence that's happening to us locally? And what I want to say to that is that whether it's locally or nationally or globally, the issues are still the same. We suffer from a vacant esteem and there's a decadence in us that we turn to violence rather than trying to work out solutions. So therefore, we need to bring the people back to what God created them to be, created us to be upstanding men, upstanding women, righteous people. And because that there's an absence in that level of our spirit, we seek to try to find pleasures in other ways, and in seeking of those pleasures, which are basically sin, we turn to violence, and these things are known all over the planet. And so it's not just in DC, it's not just in North Carolina, it's not just in New York, it's all over the planet. It involves all of our people. So the way to fix that is to address the gaping hole that is plaguing our people, and that's how we have to challenge this issue of violence. I particularly am very happy of the Youth Violence Conflict Resolution Seminar that's spearheaded by our Captain Gedaliah. I thought that his idea to come up with that was an absolute monumental idea that is designed to address the very problems with the conflict resolutions and the skits, the skits of potential violence, and showing our brothers and sisters and people in the community, period, that they could resolve their issues without picking up a firearm, without picking up a knife or a sword or whatever. You know, we need to be able to value our lives. Okay. I also noticed that there was mention of curfews that are being proposed and that are on the lips of the policymakers, I imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And the curfews, yes, it's an immediate solution, because if you definitely have situations where violence is just out there and people are dying as a result of this, you do have to bring up some measures. And for that reason, we understand the vital need for the police. That's the reason why we work with law enforcement. We work with the various communities that are about seeking change. There's a video that I have posted here. I don't know if it will fit within this program, but within this particular video that deals with, it's actually a video on the Youth Violence Conflict Resolution Seminar. It's basically somewhat of a promo video, so to speak. And in that video, we also get mayors, we get district attorneys, we get many different pillars of the community that come out and assist us in delivering this message that is designed to curb our people from this trajectory of violence that we seem to indulge in. So I make the point of saying that the curfews, although they're needed, they are not the comprehensive solution that will curb us from the violence that the curfew is meant to stave off. Until we deal with the internal spiritual rot, and I know that word is kind of stinging, but until we deal with the internal rot of self-hatred, of being devalued, vacant esteem, regardless of how many of military methods you put out there, the source of it is still there. So I do agree that we, as the community leaders, pastors, preachers, we do need to come together and work together and come and sit down and resolve and see if we can come to a peaceful solution that can really help our people to deal with not only the short range solutions, but also deal with the long range solutions, because again, we want to see children, grandchildren, and so forth. So it's a big effort of what we're trying to do, and I'm happy to be a part of it. I'm happy to be a supporter of it, and the Youth Violence Conflict Resolution Seminar, I think, is a great tool to help turn the tide.
Yes, the event, and I wanted to make sure that we got this information out early in this conversation. This is going to be at the Athletic Republic Capital Region. That's 6417 Marlboro Pike. That's in District Heights, Maryland. And it's Saturday, April 27th from 12 until 3 o'clock. There are going to be a number of presentations and speakers. And suffice it to say, this is open to everyone, but not just certainly preaching to the choir.
Mhm.
This is for, everyone who may be trying to seek a solution, for those who are concerned about the community. And so again, Saturday, noon to 3, 6417 Marlboro Pike in District Heights. It's the Stop the Violence Youth Event, Athletic Republic Capital Region building. I did want to ask you, Dr. Majid, because you've been on this program several times, and we've had many in-depth conversations about this really difficult issue. Do you believe that the curfews will be helpful? Because as you may remember, last fall, after a kind of a wave of violence involving young people, the county executive, Angela Also Brooks, implemented an emergency curfew. And from all reports that we had, it was successful. This one, however, attaches a financial penalty for parents who are not able to curtail or correct their children and keep them out of trouble.
So the immediate answer, the yes/no answer is yes, right?
Mhm.
But I also, we are blessed to be able to work with a lot of these parents as well as the young people. So I can tell you this right now, that a young person going into a household that may not be safe to spend more time in that household, a young person being basically penalized, right? And not being able to come outside because we're saying that it's not safe. We have to look at both sides of this. I believe that politicians, especially in our community, they have a task to try to implement things that may be absent in households where you have absentee parents, right? Or parents who may not have had the transfer of wealth that some of us may have had, meaning knowing where your child's going to be at, right? My nephew wanted to go down to the harbor last weekend, and he called me about it, right? And I explained to him why I didn't think he should go, right? That was a conversation.
Did he tell you why he wanted to go?
Absolutely, because his friends are going to the harbor, and this is a place where they felt comfortable going out and just doing things that teenagers do, normal things that teenagers do, right? But if you don't have anyone who has that level of understanding and can explain to you what you're doing, what your actions are, and what are the consequences of your actions, then you have a lot of people that are going down there and they're doing things that are lawless, right? Because no one's holding them accountable. So, and even when you're talking about the parents will now have some type of financial repercussions that will happen with the parents. A lot of these parents don't have the finances anyway. So we got to really be really careful about like, what are we saying even with a curfew? A curfew is amazing. I believe that, because I believe we have to put things in place sometimes when we have certain individuals in the community who don't know exactly what it takes to raise these successful young people. We have to put some things in place. And it's okay for politicians to have to assume that role, but we have to really think it out. Like, what are we actually doing? The brother said something that was really powerful when he talks about the spiritual aspect of what's going on here. There is a war going on in our community, and it starts with the spiritual part, right? And a lot of these individuals and a lot of these homes, they don't have that. And I believe that the spiritual part that he's talking about is called foundation. And we keep trying to build young people without foundation. We keep trying to build communities without foundation. We keep trying to implement all of these laws without foundation. These young people are lost. And I see them at the harbor. I see them in the community. I see individuals who are getting caught up in the carjacking, and even individuals who are going in for homicides. And I can tell you right now that the main thing that's not there is the transfer of wealth. So if I'm talking to a brother like you or one of you brothers, you've transferred a certain amount of wealth onto me. I don't mean money. I'm talking about understanding that, listen, there are consequences when you don't do certain things. That's the issue.
Dr. G, hold that point because I want to
Yes,
finish.
sir.
I want you to finish that point on the other side, but we are going to take a break. But don't forget, you can hear this and every edition of the Daily Drum Insight segment via podcast on WHUR.com. Stay with us. The Daily Drum will continue on Sirius XM channel 141. The Original Quiet Storm with John Mons is next on WHUR. This conversation continues on Sirius XM channel 141 in just a few seconds. Welcome back to the Daily Drum on Sirius XM channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. This is Take Back Our Community Thursday, where we take a look at some of the issues and possible solutions to challenges in our community. We continue our discussion tonight about deadly gun violence in our community. My guests are Bishop
Y'all, what's up? Y'all, what's up? Y'all,
what's up? Thank you so much.
No
from
problem.
Israel United in Christ Church, and Dr. Wahiz Majid, founder of Yay Me, a community activist organization. I want you to continue your point, Dr. Majid, because you were talking about not only the spiritual deficit, but also what you called a transfer of non-monetary wealth. Please continue.
Yes. So as I look at these communities, actually, this really just happened about 2 weeks ago in the Southwest community. And I asked some of the young people, I was saying, who's the oldest person in your community or your family? Who's your big homie, right? And they pointed to a young man. He was 35 years old. And I just realized, like, at 35, right, how much information do you really have to transfer to a young person at 35? How many experiences have you been through? And this is what's happening a lot of times in these communities. We don't have these elders. We don't have the seniors. We don't have these pioneers who are transferring wealth onto these young people so they can understand and be able to navigate themselves through life. So when you look at someone, you say, oh, they're stealing cars. That is the transfer of wealth that they've been given. Or when you see someone and you say learned behaviors, we use that word a lot of times, right? Mm-hmm. Our young people are very intelligent. They're very smart. They know how to learn. What are the behaviors that they are learning? What is the transfer of wealth that they have? So we cannot be mad because we've transferred that amount of wealth to them and they have been able to cash that in. We've transferred that amount of information to them. So they are learning. They are very, very smart and intelligent, but it's what they're learning. So we have to be very, very understanding and try our best to identify individuals like ourselves to make sure that we are transferring wealth onto these individuals, that we are seeing who our super seniors and pioneers are. They need to be transferring wealth, not just to these young people, but to their parents as well. So when we start to transfer more wealth in our community, when we start to hold individuals accountable and say that, hey, you have an opportunity to learn some behaviors. Let's give you some good behaviors to learn. You start seeing the difference, because looking at those young people in that class, that's what they showed me.
Bishop,
ahead, brother.
I posted a couple of questions on my social media today, and one of them was, what's the solution to stopping deadly gun violence? Is it a lost cause? The very first response that I received, and I'll read it to both of you, but this question is directed at you. It says, God's kingdom is the solution, which is what Jesus told us to pray for in the Lord's Prayer. That speaks to one of the first things that you said when entering into this conversation. But as you know, not everyone is from the faith community. And not everyone who is not a person of faith is necessarily a bad person. So how do you balance a faith-based message with people who may not have faith?
Yes, that's easy. First of all, most people attribute faith as, or like you say, a faith-based organization as if it's just wishful thinking. And so many people don't really gravitate to it. But the issues that we're talking about is concrete, solid. So we're not just merely talking about just faith. The Bible says faith without works is dead. So it's going to take works. And some of the works that has actually been done through the faith-based organization, as as we're being coined at the moment. The examples is that when we marched through some of the roughest neighborhoods on the planet, basically, and I mean even overseas. We went through Memphis in 2018. We went through Chicago in Inglewood, Chicago, and we also went through O Block, and we also went through 7 Mile in Detroit. And I mean, these particular areas were terribly ridden with crime, gun violence, rape, robberies, you name it. But when we marched through there, we were singing a chant basically saying some of us used to sell drugs, some of us used to be in the club, some of us used to participate in various acts of violence and so forth. But now we take care of our wives and our children too. So this quote unquote faith-based organization really did clean up people. Let me make a point about the underwriter, if you will, the underwriters of the violence, the youth violence conflict resolution seminar. Israel United in Christ, we are a faith-based organization that began in 2003 under Bishop Nathaniel. Bishop Nathaniel is the head bishop of this organization. I serve under him. Meaning we all serve the Most High, but I'm saying there's order in our organization. So that's what I mean by that. So, and the reason why Israel United in Christ was set up, as he had put it, is that because, and we understand this to be necessary, when we looked out in society and we saw like I said before, the decadent rot of our people, we needed to find there was a biblical solution to address our people. First of all, we are the people of the Bible. That's the number one problem that's among our people. We don't know who we are. Being that we don't know who we are, there's always a question mark, a gaping spiritual hole in our heads. And because that information is not being provided to fill that hole up, that's where the question marks come in, and we began to participate in all kinds of violence, all kinds of promiscuous, all kinds of activities, trying to fill that gaping hole. Even consumerism is a part of that, which is one of the driving forces to the crime. Consumerism basically is when I say consumerism, I mean in the terms of us trying to get rich quick, trying to rob each other, trying to stick each other up because I'm trying to get a one-up on my brother, trying to get a one-up on my sister. And when you have those kinds of situations, you have to understand the paradigm from where this comes from. What I mean by that particularly is that if we don't have any knowledge of our past, if we don't know that we're the Israelites that the Bible speaks of, and then we basically have no knowledge of where we're going in our future, because our future is so uncertain, our people resolve in their minds that the only place for us to be is right here. You only live once kind of mentality. And if I can't get what I need to get right now, I'll kill for it. I'll murder for it. I'll rape for it. I'll do anything. Where there's no vision. The Bible talks about that. I'm gonna just read this real quick. Give me that. Proverbs 29:18. This is what the problem is, and we can't run away from it. Although it's mentioned that people don't want to subscribe to the faith, quote unquote faith. This is not a faith book per se, because faith incorporates work. When you see the brothers marching through your cities and standing up, our people are standing by in awe. They can't believe what they see. They're actually seeing men that used to be on the corners. It used to be, and I'm not saying this is the totality of our congregation. We get people from all walks of life, doctors, people work in government.
So let me stop, Bishop. Let me stop you. As a person of faith, I agree. My question to you was,
I'm sorry, I didn't lose it, but go ahead, reiterate.
But you need, but let's be really clear about this, okay? As I said, not all of the people who are involved in these activities and those who are not are necessarily people of faith, and that message could very well be lost on them.
I understand that.
And so, because that, and I'll go to the next comment that I got on Facebook, for
but example. I do want to address that.
Okay, because the other one was, it said our city lacks a strategic and comprehensive plan. See, Baltimore, Newark, and several other cities with these plans and that have marked reductions in crime. That comment is not a faith-based comment. And like I said, I think that for communities of faith, I think your message is well delivered. But for a lot of people who want this to stop in their communities, it's going that message of faith is going to fall on deaf ears.
Okay. You ever heard of this doctor named Joy DeGruy? Or Joy
Yeah.
Leary, formerly named Joy Leary? She
Yeah.
points out.
She's actually been on. She was on my program many years ago.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
a fantastic person.
I totally agree. She has a part in her book where she speaks about vacant esteem, and that's what I'm talking about. Vacant, when you have a vacant esteem, or again, a decadence of self-worthiness, that will lead to the violence. And the only way that you can really curb that is when people see examples of change. And that's what I was saying earlier. I said the examples that we've made. I'm speaking to the community that's not quote unquote faith based. When we march through the communities, they actually see, like when we were going through Chicago, there was a man that was sitting on the side. He's not thinking about Bible at all. He's actually seeing the violence. He lived in Inglewood, Chicago, and he stopped and spoke to some of our cameramen, our PR persons, and he had a conversation with the brothers. And he said, listen, you men don't really realize what you guys have done when you've come here. He said, y'all been here for 2 hours, and for those 2 hours, you have no idea how many people did not get killed. How many fathers actually made it home to see their daughters and so forth. He said, for just a short amount of time, you don't know how much violence you stopped. The moment when we left, and by the way, media did not show up. It's amazing. Media didn't show up. No cameras. No, you would not even know we were there, which deals with another aspect. But after we left, then the violence broke out a few hours after we left, and all of a sudden the cameras came back into the news medias came back in to basically illuminate the violence. But during a time when there was no violence at all, nothing, we didn't hear anything. No shine, no light, no nothing. So,
yeah, Dr. Majid, I did want to ask you to drill down a little bit more about your National Harbor program for youth. You kind of briefly touched on it early in this conversation, but explain what it is that you were doing specifically at the National Harbor where we've seen some of these disturbances.
So basically what we're doing is we're just engaging with the youth, right? So we're, as they come to the harbor, we're talking to them, we're asking them why they're there. We're explaining to them the rules of the harbor, letting them know that it's private property, which a lot of people don't know that. We're also letting them know that if they are banned, then they will probably be in a position where you won't be able to come here the next week and be able to enjoy your friends or do some of the things that you want to do. So that's really our job. Some of the other things that we do is because of our footprint in the DMV area. It's just kind of letting them know, like, what else? What would you want to see? What do you want to do? These are some other places that you can go. You know, and then we want to know, how did you get here? You know, did you catch an Uber? Did you catch a train? Did you catch, how did you get to this area? Because we're trying to figure out, like, not only do we want to tell them not to come here if you have something, if you want to be lawless, this is not the place for you. But what do you want to do? What are you looking for? And we realize, as they say, we don't have anything else to do. And the parents that we're able to talk to, they say, listen, I feel like my child is safer here than they are in our community, right? And that understanding that what they have started. So our job is really just to engage, encourage, let them know that it's okay to be a child, but it's also their rules and responsibilities for you being here without any parental guidance. So that's what.
So let me ask you about that. When did it become a thing for parents to just drop their kids off or send them via Uber to the National Harbor?
And your question, you kind of broke up just a little bit.
I'm sorry. When did it become a thing for parents to just drop their kids off at the National Harbor or Uber or Uber to the National Harbor? This is why I asked, because as I grew up in this area, and and this is a broader conversation that I'm willing to have, because we can say times have changed, children have changed, even parents have changed. Today's National Harbor is yesteryear's Landover Mall, okay, which
Exactly.
was,
Exactly.
but and I hate to go into this phrase, but we have to look at this from an historical perspective as well. When I was a teenager, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, yes, as a 15, 16, 17-year old, and even when I was in college, we went and we walked Landover Mall, Aladdin's Castle, the pinball arcade. Yes, we looked at the girls were looking at us. And when I was there, I didn't have any problems with my guys because we weren't causing problems. We eventually, when the metro came, we went to Georgetown. Okay. These, again, these are business district places. And suffice it to say, we are still talking about Prince George's County. There's still a lot of money in Prince George's County. Not, and I'm sure a lot of these young people, these kids are not raised in the hood. These children are
Not all
coming,
of them. No.
right. These kids
Yeah.
are coming from solid foundational families, parents educated,
Yes.
parents, doctors, lawyers, butchers, bakers, candlestick makers, federal government workers, senior executive staff. These are not bad kids, but something is happening when
Yes,
whether
something is happening. And
so what do you think that is?
so one of the things that I can say, and when we look at the difference between 10 years ago, 20 years ago, or 40 years ago, right? Let's look at the systems that these young people kind of coming under. So we all know that it was our parents, right? Then it was, school officials or police officers. Then it was media, right? And it was kind of in that order. Now the order is flipped. The media is more in charge of our kids than we are, or should I say they have more interactions with them than we do. The police or the school systems, they have probably the second interaction, and that's not a positive one. The third interaction is the parents. So instead of us raising our kids, we have other systems and other things that are raising our kids, and we're kind of the third level. So until we turn that around, or we make sure that the individuals that they are, like, for instance, are you going through your kid's phone, right? Do you see what they're looking at on Instagram? Do you see what they're looking at on all these other sites that I'm learning about? Are we doing that? Are we actually parenting our kids? So when we talk about PG, which is parental guidance, it's not really happening at the level that we're used to seeing it. And by the time it gets down to us doing the parental guidance piece, we've already filtered so much information into our young people through social media, through the individuals who are in the schools and things like that, that we, it's almost a lost cause in a sense. And that's what we see right now. And so that is really one of the bigger changes that I see in our community with the young people that I'm working with.
Bishop, you said something that struck me earlier when you were talking about there were, young people who were initially involved in these problematic activities, but now they are, raising their families, protecting their homes.
Yes.
And does it? Let me just put it as plain. Do you have to be old to have your stuff together?
No.
Do you
Uh,
have to? I mean, because I get it, and that even for our returning citizens, they may go in young, they come out older or old, and they come out and they're not, and they say they're not doing it anymore. Then they're not part of that life. But for those who are not incarcerated, what can we do to spread to get that old head message to them while they are still young?
We have to go back to the source. That's what the problem is, and we keep evading it. We don't to relegate what we're talking about to just merely a faith-based organization in terms of how people think about the faith. We are not the kind of faith organization that many people associate biblical faith with. We are about doing the works of the Bible. It is the reason why we're going through the things that we're going through is because God put it in. God made it happen because we disobeyed his laws. This is the reason why we have to bring that out. This has got nothing to do with religion or faith. This is actual facts. This is what it is. This is, now you will speak about faith in the history books. That is not the secular history books. I'll put it that way. It talks about, it is recorded in there to who these people are. Our people that was brought over here in slavery because we broke the laws of God. We are the Israelites that the Bible speaks of. But whenever we bring that point up, it seems like people want to push that to the side, and God is not going to allow that to be. So, and these facts that I'm talking about are actually written in books that have nothing to do with the Bible. This is actual scholarly work that we're talking about. But to get back to the point about our people, when they come out of the prisons, whether they're in the prisons or even in the communities, a lot of us have these bad habits and traits among us because it just festers in a community, so to speak, where there's no vision. The Bible says where there is no vision, the people perish. That's true. We actually see that. That's a scripture in the Bible. The Bible also talks about, it says, hope deferred maketh the mind sick. When people can't have hope and vision to see, to actually aspire, to plan, to set forth goals, if they feel like their goals are shut off, if they feel like their plans are shut off, that's going to force them to live in the immediate present. And if they're forced to live into the immediate present and they're looking at their present condition, they'll try to do everything at that very moment to get the riches that normally hard work and dedication and time would actually get. But if they have no vision of thinking that they're going to make it there, they'll relegate themselves to the exact present and do everything that they can just to live a quote unquote rich or some kind of life. And usually that's where the violence comes in at. So,
Dr. Majid, you spoke about media, and I want to read, at least in part, someone posted after this question that I posted earlier, and she wrote quite a bit. Her name is Melinda Roberts, and she made a point that you again kind of touched on, but she really put a fine point on it. And she says, until the U.S. bans these violent video games that are turning these kids into monsters, it'll only get worse. Their underdeveloped minds cannot decipher real life from the games they play, shooting into crowds, killing innocent people, etc. In Grand Theft Auto, players must murder 729 people to get to the next level. The gaming industry is a billion-dollar industry, and it needs to be held accountable for the damages being done to the minds of the players. And then she goes on, to talk about that. I would argue that she is really kind of spot on. And again, forgive me for saying back in my day, Bishop, we are probably within a few years of each other's age. And so you can probably relate that, yeah, when we were growing up, our video games were not violent. There was, the very first ones, there was Pong, and you had Pac-Man and Centipede. None of those things were violent. They were silly. They were fun. But I think that, Dr. Majid, she makes such an important point, because if parents are now abandoning their children to, for example, violent video games, violent media for hours on end so that they can have peace or do whatever they're doing, this may be directly related to some of the things that we're seeing in the street.
So the video games.
Go ahead, Bishop, and then I want Dr. Majid to also make a comment about that.
the video games is just part of it. But again, it takes, we as men, we have to look at the problem square up in the face. And that's what we're evading that. Again, my opening statement was about the decadent spiritual rot that's in us. This has got nothing to do with in terms of faith or religion or anything. This is what we really see. You know, I'm from New York originally. I've seen what a decadent mind has done to our people. I've seen them come inside hospitals. I've seen how they carry themselves, and there's no light in them at all. So I'm not just talking whim. I'm talking from things that I've seen and what I've experienced. It's these same people, once you give them what's been missing in their lives, and then they begin to light up and change. And that's what I'm talking about. That's the reason why I mentioned the point about the brothers coming through the streets. That's you're only seeing the men. The women and all kinds of people have cleaned up. Young men, young women, children, the whole nation have been, people have walking in righteousness. We have a book called the Welcome Home Program, the Welcome Home booklet, which is basically the beginning steps to our brothers and sisters to come in and learn the righteousness, to clean their lives up, to clean their families up and their children and so forth, okay? Our website is www.israelunite.org. You want to know more about us? Check us out, okay?
IsraelUnite.org. Thank you for that.
IsraelUnite.org, www.israelunite.org. Okay, I have to put that out there because I want people to really see what we're really about. And not
okay. Dr. Majid, your thoughts about what I was saying regarding that social media post the lady just made?
I think it's spot on. It's just when you're talking about the number of kills that you have to get to the next level, right? What does that do? That desensitizes this for us. I think the problem with a lot of these games is we forget that when you purchase the game, it has two letters on there. It says PG, but they don't have the guidance that comes along with the game. I make this story about my son. When we play the game, him and my nephews, when they play the game, I'm asking them, do you know what kind of gun that is? You know, I mean, people die from that gun right there. Why would you steal that car like that? I made it so that my son said, you know what, Daddy, the game's boring to me. I don't even want to play anymore, right? Because I'm making him talk through each piece of the game. And that's actually what needs to happen. There's a certain guidance that has to come with these games so that the game isn't raising your child. You are raising your child. That's not happening. So when you see that, the game's taking over. When you see situation, and let me tell you another thing that you said that was really powerful when you talk about the brothers and sisters that are coming home as returning citizens. That goes back to the original conversation about transferring wealth. When they go in, they are now transferred wealth from older individuals that are in there that are saying, young man, when you get out, you need to do this. This is what you did. This is why you're here. This is why I'm not coming home. They are getting transferred wealth in the penitentiary. So when they come home, they are these changed individuals. So when you see them go in at 17, 18, 20 years old, you say, this guy was so hard. He was a lion. And he comes out and you're like, wow, he can regulate his feelings now. He knows how to emote himself. He knows how to do all these different things. You're like, what happened? The thing is, he was transferred wealth. And out here in these communities, we are not transferring wealth onto our young people. So unfortunately, some of them have to go in, you know, for 15, 20, 25 years, and they come out and you're like, wow, why couldn't you do that while you were on the streets? What was the one thing that happened? It wasn't the fact that they had 100 years. They were transferred wealth. And that's the important thing that we have to look at our young people on for everything that we're talking about right now, even the spiritual aspect that the brother's talking about. That's a transfer of wealth. You know, we went to church because we had to go there, and at church, we would transfer wealth, right? Those who are Muslim, you went to the masjid, you would transfer wealth. You know, we went to the recreation centers that they've gotten rid of. It was a transfer of wealth. All of these things that they had in place for our young people to become whole are gone. So if you're not transferring wealth, what have you done? You see these people walking around and they're broke. They're spiritually broke, mentally broke, physically broke, financially broke. Our communities are broken because there's no transfer of wealth in our communities like it was when you all were young, when I was young. That's a big part right there.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to have to let that be the last word as I'm out of time. But I want to thank both of you for participating in this really, really important conversation. And don't forget, you know, that Stop the Violence Youth event, 6417 Marlboro Pike, District Heights, Saturday, April 27th from 12 to 3. Again, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. That is the Daily Drum for this Thursday, April 25th. I'm Harold Fisher.